Why didn't Rareware use a memory pack for Stop N Swop? Why didn't Rareware use a memory pack for Stop N Swop? Why didn't Rareware use a memory pack for Stop N Swop? This is a question I often still see, even in response to my Stop N Swop 2-hour lore documentary that I posted recently. In fact, I even see people saying, why didn't Rareware use an expansion pack too? Which would never happen, because that hardware is not for saving game data to. Regardless, for the uninitiated, Stop N Swop pertains to 7 mysterious out-of-reach collectible items in Banjo-Kazooie, which were envisioned to be magically spirited away to other Rareware titles, such as Donkey Kong 64. The key would have opened a special door in Crystal Caves. In my 2-hour documentary, I touched on the reason why Rareware opted to not use a memory pack there, but people either didn't watch it all, or the point escaped them. Well, here is the reason why they didn't. In 1998, before Banjo-Kazooie was released, Rareware's co-founder, Tim Stamper, questioned game engineer Paul Makachek as to if it would be possible to transfer data from one game to another on the Nintendo 64 without external hardware. Did you spot the important part of that inquiry? Without external hardware. That was the whole concept that spurred the existence of Stop N Swop to begin with. Paul, doing his experimenting, discovers that when the game is removed from the N64, retrievable data is kept inside the console for a brief time, roughly 25 seconds. Paul informs Tim, and the concept of mystery items in locked-off locations in Banjo-Kazooie is put into place. The intention that future Rareware games will connect and swap code via cold swapping, which means quickly switching games while the console is turned off, and then turning it back on once the next game has been placed in the console. And as a consequence, the mystery items will be transferred from Banjo-Kazooie to the next Rareware game. The mystery items took the guise of colourful big Easter eggs, due to it being unplanned which games they would eventually end up being sent to. As Paul said, had they known which games the eggs were going to be sent to, they may have changed the eggs to resemble things such as a special gun, to be sent to Perfect Dark 64, for example. However, Donkey Kong 64 was in production, and so Stop N Swop elements were placed into Donkey Kong 64. The idea of a big, locked ice door in Crystal Caves was envisioned and implemented, so the 7th mystery egg in Banjo-Kazooie was turned into a giant ice key. The ice key was the only Stop N Swop item with its fate sealed. The remaining 6 eggs would never find out where they would go. Remember, Stop N Swop in Banjo-Kazooie is actually a fully functioning feature. It does work. The only problem is, no future Rare games held any code to talk to Banjo-Kazooie's code in order to activate and open up the areas. From Banjo-Kazooie's corner, Stop N Swop is fully functioning. Rareware did, however, add a contingency plan in place in case problems with Stop N Swop did arise between games. This took form in shape of the Sandcastle cheat codes which unlocked the secret Stop N Swop items. As Paul Makachek pointed out, a memory pack would have been a contingency plan to a contingency plan, the Sandcastle codes. And so, realistically, knowing that cold swapping worked, they didn't need to add the programming required for the means of a memory pack to be involved. Kieran Connell, a software engineer for Rareware at the time, also stated in a now deleted tweet that there wasn't much room on the cart to be adding features such as memory pack compatibility. The problem of Stop N Swop failing only arose in 1999 due to Nintendo's hesitancy and asking Rare to pull the plug on the feature. Here is a tweet from Paul himself summarising the main point. Memory PAKS were not a part of the briefing. The whole notion of Stop N Swop was based upon being innovative and creating a sense of magic and mystery by transferring data between games without external hardware. And without the permission to perform Stop N Swop as Rareware had planned, Stop N Swop's days came to an end. The ship had sailed.
Wahey!
As Paul has mentioned in a couple of interviews, everyone has seen data transferred between hardware via memory PAKS and in this day and age USB devices and SD cards. But to see two carts with no additional hardware other than the N64, swap coding to allow special areas to open up and ultimately secret items to be sent from one game to the other would be akin to magic in the late 90s. We did see a version of Stop N Swop on the Xbox ports of Banjo-Kazooie and Banjo-Tooie, but the magic wasn't quite there due to its execution and the fact that save data being read between hardware in the 21st century isn't really something that exciting. That's not to say that we can't still have great game mysteries and have secrets exchanged between them. It's just going to take a lot more effort to make them exciting. Stop N Swop existed because of the idea of doing it without memory PAKS, so questions why they didn't simply use one is a moot point. For a more in-depth look at Stop N Swop, please check my 2-hour video. Thank you for watching.